Welcome back to Phillips Hot Rod Garage. Alright guys, I'm digging this 32. I like the way it looks sitting in here. I'm just going to let the thing sit in here for a while so I can dream about it, look at it, figure out what I'm going to do with it. But in this video, it's time to get to work on the Model A. We got to do some work on the rear cross member. Let's get busy. Alright, so this is the piece we're going to try to rebuild in this video. This center section right here. These end pieces here are the original subrails, which I don't need anymore. I won't be using those. So this new piece I build, I'm not going to put this curved area back into it. I'm not going to need this anymore because I will not be using the factory subrails back here. I will be using the Steadfast Manufacturing curved subrail kit that's made to fit the Model A body onto the 32 frame. So that subrail kit is actually going to install a little different than the original subrail, so I don't need this curved area, so I'm not going to put that back in there. So what I've got to do is find a piece of metal that I can just remake this straight piece right here. I'm just going to make it go straight all the way across to the ends. I'm going to make it a little bit different than the factory, but that'll be just fine. I'm going to make it work for what I need it to work for, instead of the way old Henry Ford made it. I'm going to make it my way this time. So I just need a piece of metal. It looks like this is going to be just like all the rest of the structural stuff on this car, about a 12 gauge. So I got to find a piece of metal. I got a sheet. I don't know if it's exactly 12 gauge or not. I'm really not sure what it is. I'm not going to go buy a piece just for this. So I'm going to use what I got. Let me go grab what I got and see if it'll work. Alright, now I got to get my plasma cutter. That ought to work. Alright, I got a straight edge, measuring tape, markers, soapstone. What else do I need? Plug in my plasma. There you go. Alright, there we go. It's powered on now. Oh, gotta turn on my air compressor. Alright, so my metal brake is only 36 inches wide, and this piece, the same thing, 36 inches wide, roundabout. So that'll work for me. I'm gonna cut a piece out 36 inches wide. I gotta figure out the height of it here. I think it's gonna be 1 13/16. Yeah, 1 13/16. Looks like that'll get it. Alright, so the lip right here has to be, it looks like 3/4 of an inch wide. 3/4. So 1 13/16 for this part, and 2 3/4 inch wide lips is going to be, redneck math here, might as well just go 2 inches plus 1.5 inches for the 3/4 inch lips. It'll give me 3.5 inches to work with, and then I can trim it down a little bit later. So I'm gonna go 3.5 inches wide, 36 inches long, and I'm also gonna make another little short piece that I can use to fill in these areas where the subrails are gonna be, in case I decide to take this piece all the way to the end of the rear cross member. Because they're going to be, this piece will be about this much too short on each side, which will end up being looks like about 3.5 inches too short on each side. So I need to make another piece I'll just make it 8 or 10 inches long just to give me another piece to bend up so I can have enough to finish it out. I would do it different and just make one long piece if I had a metal brake long enough. But the only problem that I have with my metal brake is it's, I think, rated for 22 gauge sheet metal. So I'm going to have a hard time bending this up anyway. And I didn't even see what thickness this is. Let me measure it. I can't find what I did with my tool. I found it. Let's see how thick this is. Well, it looks like it's 16 gauge. You know, I was wrong a while ago. I said 12 gauge. That's not 12. I was looking at that wrong. It's actually about halfway between 14 and 16. The 16 gauge won't fit, and a 14 gauge is a little bit loose. It's rusty, so it probably originally was a 14 gauge. It's pretty close to a 16 now, so this piece is actually really close to the original thickness. A little bit different, but really, really close. It's close enough. It's going to work for what I needed to do. All right, let me get it marked out and get started cutting on this. I think I'll just use the marker. Three and a half. Three and a half. Straight edge. Close enough. Now it's time to get this cut so I can take it to work with me tomorrow and get it bent. Alright guys, so I got these two pieces cut out. I'm going to take these to work with me tomorrow. I'm going to try to use the metal brake there at work to bend these. If it won't work, I'm going to try to find somebody that's got a bigger brake, something capable of bending this thicker material. Hopefully I can make ours work. I don't know. I'm going to take it with me tomorrow to work. We're going to see what happens. Alright, and this is the brake I just used. It was kind of tough bending it. Capacity is 20 gauge. This stuff I just bent up's a little thicker than 20, but it worked. Had to stick this pry bar up in there, and yeah, you get the idea. All right, so I'm back for another day. I got this all bent up today. I got to trim it down some. I made it a little bigger than I needed it, so I'd have room to trim it. So it looks like it's going to be the right size. I think it's going to work out. So all I got to do now is get this piece off so I can get this piece and this piece to fit together. So let's get this off of here and get to doing some trimming. Got it. All right, so let's take a look at this thing. I had planned to put this piece in like this, and then put another piece on the end, My metal brake's only 36 inches long, so I could not make this in one piece. I was just going to trim this off, weld it to it, and make one solid piece go all the way across. That was my original plan. But the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking about putting this piece right here in the center. Find the center of the outer piece and the center of the inner piece, line them up, put this piece in right here, and just let it go at that. The reason why is because originally when this piece was in here like this, and the sub rails were up in there, this piece never went to the end anyway. You see it stopped right here. But the sub rails went in there, and of course they added a little reinforcement there, but that's not going to be necessary. I'm not going to need that. But they're open on the inside, so they were in there leaving this space open originally. So I don't think it'll be a problem just to leave that open on each end. It's not a big deal. If I decide later on I don't like it, I can always come in here and cut a couple of pieces and weld them in. And I don't think I'm gonna do that. I think this will be fine. So that's the plan. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start by finding center of the outer, center of the inner, line them up, put the piece down in here. Then I'm gonna get prepared to trim these lips off down to 3/4 of an inch so it fits in there perfectly, just like I want it. Let's get started. Gotta have a hammer. Well, the doors are rattling pretty good. Supposed to have some storms coming through. Hopefully they don't get too bad. Alright, I gotta set the depth on this now. I gotta make sure this is 3/4 of an inch right here. And then I'm gonna mark it so I can cut it off. Gotta have some clamps. Alright, I got it looking pretty good in there now. You can see I have it fitting pretty flush across the top side here. Alright, and along the bottom side, I'm going to have to trim off just a little bit, not much. So I'm going to mark that where I got to trim it, so I can trim that off, and that'll be getting in pretty good shape. All right, I got all the grinder work done, so stick it back together now. There's a few holes I've got to mark and drill out. Not too many, but there's a few. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it back in, mark those holes, get those drilled. We'll be about getting pretty close to being done with this piece. We don't lack a whole lot. All right, it's in there. It's looking good. And as you can see, it fits pretty good in there. I don't see anything wrong with that. Looks pretty good. So now, there's a couple of holes right there I got to drill through it. One right there. Right here, and there's one there on the other side, and then from under the bottom, I don't know what these holes were originally for, but since they were in the original piece, I'll just put them in there. I might not need them, but I'll put them in there anyway, and then that's going to look pretty good. I think it's going to look pretty good. All right, so let's figure out what size these holes are that I got to drill. That's not it. It's a 7/32 is too big. Let's try a 13/64. Goes right in there. No problem. All right, so 13/64. That's what these are going to be drilled to right here. Now I think what I can do is just take the drill and drill them right here. I don't even think there's any reason to mark them. I think I can just drill straight down through them. That's what I'm going to do. All right, let's get them drilled. Well, this piece is in the way of drilling, so I gotta take it off. Gotta get a Phillips head screwdriver. Well, that's not working too good because it's at an angle. I'm just going to use a handheld Phillips. Guarantee you that'll work better. Oh yeah. Alright, get that piece out of the way. Alright, so now we're going to try drilling it again. Yeah, I better clamp it first. I'd hate to start drilling and it start moving around on me. End up with a hole in the wrong place. That'd be terrible. That'll hold it. Perfect. Alright, so now we got to figure out the holes in this side. There's only 4 of them, but they're a bit larger. Let's see what size they are. Nineteen 64ths is too small. 5/16 will fit. Try 21 64ths. I think that's it. I think the 21 64ths is going to be the one. Yeah, 11/32 won't fit. I don't know. Fits in this side, but it doesn't fit into that piece very well. I can force it in there. So considering the fact that the 11/32 will fit here, I think I'll just drill it through the inside piece the same size. Might as well make them the same size. So this piece is the perfect drill guide, so once again, I'll just drill straight through it. Won't even have to mark it. All right. All right, so I'm going to stick this back on the car. I want to show you something else that's going on with this. Just some things I got to get figured out. Let's take a look. All right, so as you can see, I've got one of these Steadfast Manufacturing curved subrails stuck in here, so you can get a good idea of how it's going to work back here at the rear cross member. It's actually going to sit on top of the cross member now, instead of fitting inside the cross member as it did before. I'll show you how it looks from the bottom. All right, so here you can see where the subrail used to fit right into here. And you can see now that it sits up on top of it. It's just a little different how that's going to attach. Now, since the subrail is no longer going into this area here, I've now got these open holes here where the rear subrail used to attach right here to the side. It used to rivet here. I may end up making something to come off of the subrail down to attach this back to. Probably will. And of course, the wheel well will come all the way down to this level right here. So it's cut off now because it's all got to be replaced, but it will come all the way back to here. It'll hide the frame rail back here, and of course it'll come right level with the frame rail, or with the subrail here, all the way across. And I might notch it out over this, probably will, and then it'll come straight back to there. And a little bit more of the frame has to be cut off right here so that it doesn't stick down below the wheel well. But of course I can't fit that back there at the back until I get this figured out up here at the front. I've got to figure out where to cut that old original subrail off to get this to sit down flush with it here at the front. So that's probably what I'm going to be doing in the next video. So I'm going to have to get that up there cut off and fit correctly before I can begin to try to figure out how this is going to go back here. And another thing I've got to do is I've got to establish a center line down this car, because right now these quarter panels move around quite a bit. There's nothing to hold that cross member centered in the car from side to side. So what I've got to do is I've got to go and buy a laser. I don't have one to shoot down through this thing. I'm gonna find the center of the front cross member up there, the next one behind it, probably the center of the firewall, and establish a center point down the car so I can center this rear cross member so this thing will be squared up. It's either that or pull a string down through there, or I could probably just put a piece of square tubing down through there and do it that way. I don't really know which way I'm going to do it. I'd like to have one of those lasers. I don't think they cost that much. I may just go get one of those. We'll see. All right. So that's where we're at on this deal. One more thing I'm going to show you on the inside. All right, so I just want to show you what I mentioned earlier about trimming this subrail so that it would go back some. You can see now that this is all in place, that it's got to go back this far right here. So I'm going to trim this up here so this will come back, and then that'll allow me to attach the end of it to this piece. It'll give me the full width of this area here to attach the floor pan to all the way down, and the end of the subrail here can attach right there. So that's what I was talking about earlier. That'll give you a good idea of what we got to do in the next video. All right, guys, I appreciate you hanging out to the end of the video. That wraps it up for another one. We got rain on the roof. Storms are coming in. I'm going to get on back in the house before the weather gets too bad. Hopefully it really doesn't get that bad, but you never know what the weather's going to do. So I appreciate you hanging out, guys. It felt good to be back in the shop, making some progress on the Model A. Felt good to see progress made this week. It was kind of difficult to get motivated and get back in gear after taking off and going to the swap meet over at Moultrie and the car show down in Panama City, and Thanksgiving we ate too much. But we're back in gear. We're back on the car. We're about to work on these subrails next week. Everything is coming along nicely. Things are going as planned. So in case you didn't notice, we did hit 1,000 subscribers during this last week while this video was being made. We hit 1,000 subscribers. I don't have time to get involved in that right now, but in an upcoming video, probably in the next one, I'll talk about the 1,000 subscriber mark, what it took me to get there, and what I used to get there, and how I go about making my videos and that sort of thing. Also, I had a subscriber to reach out to me and want to support the channel a little bit. So we got our first package in. We'll do a unboxing, a little mail call segment probably in the next video, and I'll show you what the subscriber has sent. I look forward to getting this box opened up. I certainly appreciate that. So 1,000 subscribers, first mail from a subscriber, progress on the Model A. It's been a good week. It's been a good week. I appreciate you guys hanging out. You're not going to miss the next one. I'll see you guys then.